Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we will be doing an update to my Nightblade DPS build for Update 29 Flames of Ambition. For those who don't know much about the Nightblade class, the class is designed, in my opinion, to mimic something on the lines of an assassin or rogue type play style, with abilities that give you more damage to an enemy that is below a certain amount of health, being able to be one with the shadow and disappearing from sight, even surprise enemies with some snares, stuns, and fears. The main idea of this build was to play off of the D&D rogue class design. The part that I have always enjoyed about the rogue in D&D was their combat style. How they could strike several times when an enemy was unaware of their presence, or lurking in the dark until their group was in need of a well-placed strike. So for this particular Nightblade build, I've designed it to deal better damage the lower the enemy's health is. Also, for somebody who is to flank the enemies at all times to get the upper hand in a fight. By learning to stay on an enemy's flank with this build, it will help you have better success with your DPS. If you would like to learn more on how to make this surprise attack, backstabbing, flanking strategist, I will be going over the stats on the build, what skills I like to use, what kind of passive setups are used on the build, what kind of gear makes this build tick, and last, the CP setup I have for my level. All this will help you make this particular DPS build. All the information is coming up next. So we will be starting off with our character stats. First, we're going to pop our potion. On our front bar with our bow, max magic is sitting at 13,600, max health at 23,600, with max stam at 30,100. Magica recovery sitting at 790, health recovery at 684, with a stam recovery at 2,300, which would be on both bars. Now for spell damage and weapon damage on the build, for our bow bar, our spell damage will sit at 2,600, spell critical at 42.5%, spell penetration at 7,698, with weapon damage at 3,500, weapon critical at 64.3% with our buffed potion, and physical penetration at 6,700. A lot of these stats can go a lot further when we're attacking an enemy that will show a little bit later. Now for our dual wield bar, spell damage is sitting at 3,000 with spell critical at 37.7%, spell penetration at 9,000, weapon damage is sitting at 4,100 with weapon critical at 59.5%, with physical penetration at 8,300. And as I can show you, that spell penetration went up to 7,600 on the bow bar and physical went up to 6,700. Now if we actually go and attack an enemy here, our weapon damage can go up to 5,100 with a weapon critical at 65.5%. And on the bow bar, weapon damage could go to 4,400 with weapon critical sitting at 70%. So yes, we have a lot of weapon critical percentage with a decent amount of damage there. Now for spell resistance and physical resistance, we ain't gonna worry too much about that because you mostly worry about spell and physical if you are for tank, but since we're not building a tank, we will negate this on this build. For attributes on this build, we have 64 points into stam. Because this is a stam setup DPS, we want all of our points into there. Yes, you could put some points into health if you feel like you need to survive. However, I feel like I have enough health to survive here. And where do I get all that health will come into later of the build. Now for the Mundus Stone or boon that we have active, I am running the Thief, which increases our weapon and spell critical rating. So that's why my critical rating is high. If you think this is too high, then I would highly recommend it and go using the Shadow. The Shadow Stone actually increases your critical damage done by a certain percentage. I believe it's 13%, but don't quote me on that. Now, we'll be going over into the skills that we were running, starting on our front bar. So skills on our front bar. Now, the skill setups that I have on my bar with poison injection and endless hail and stuff like that, this doesn't mean that it has to be in this order. Your poison injection doesn't need to be X. It can be Y, it can be left bumper, it could be B. You can put this in any order that you want to that feels more natural and comfortable for you for DPSing. However, some of the skills on these bars are there for a reason, so when we go over passives, that's where you will learn why they're on this bar. So let's start out with the first ability. First ability is found all the way down into the bow skill line. It is the 5th ability to unlock, starts off with Poison Arrow. We then morph it to Poison Injection. This will deal 3,900 poison damage when we hit somebody with it, and then an additional 8,500 poison damage over the 10 seconds. Now, why do we end up using this? Because it applies a negative effect, and the negative effects is very important on this build that we'll find out later when we talk over the ultimate. But the main reason we actually want to use this is because we deal up to 100% more damage to enemies under 50% health. So this is kind of like an execute ability. So I will actually end up using this throughout the fight, whether or not the enemy is below 50% health or not, just to make sure I got poison damage over time ticking and a negative effect like I said earlier. Next ability we have is up in the bow skill line yet. It is the 2nd ability to unlock, starts off as Volley. We then morph it to Endless Hail. This will shoot arrow barrage in an area of 5 meters that will deal 1,400 physical damage to enemies in the target area once every for 12 seconds. Yes, the duration says 14 seconds because you will have a 2-second delay when this goes. So this is a very nice ability to use, especially when your tank ends up stacking a bunch of adds together and you got a big group of them. This is a nice ability to cast, so you're hitting them all at the same time. Next ability we have is all the way up into the Shadow skill line. It is the 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Summon Shade. We then morph it to Dark Shade. This will summon a shade of our version that will attack enemies at our side for 20 seconds. The nice thing about the shade is it will go out and deal 2,700 magic damage by slashing on an enemy, and then occasionally will do an area of effect damage to all enemies around them, doing still 2,700 damage once every 2 seconds. But when it ends up attacking someone, it inflicts minor main, which is really nice because reducing enemies' damage done by 5% for 4 seconds makes us a little bit more survivable. On top of it, we actually can help our group members survive as well. On top of it, this also has another negative effect. So now we have 2 abilities in our skill line here that have negative effects on our skill bar. Next ability we have is down into... It's up in the Assassination skill line. It is the 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Grim Focus. We then morph it to Relentless Focus. This will cast for 1 minute, so it's a very long duration cast ability. And this increases our critical damage and healing by 2% for every light and heavy attack, up to 5 times. So in total of 10% more critical damage done and healing. So this is a really nice thing to have take for the full durations of 60 seconds. However, if you really need to and need a very well-placed shot and actually end up getting health for this, then I would suggest then use Assassin's Scourge, which will happen, the ability will swap to when you have 5 light or heavy attacks. It will also deal 14,500 disease damage and heal for 33% of that damage done if you are within melee range. So make sure you stay close, which you will be, because melee damage will be our main DPS on this build if you need some health. Now what this looks like is, as you can see my left bumper there, how the Grim Focus now turned into Assassin throwing a knife type of figure. Next skill we have is down into the Siphoning skill line. It is the 4th ability to unlock, starts off as Siphoning Strikes. We then morph it to Leeching Strikes. This also lasts for 20 seconds, same as our Shade does. This causes our light and heavy attacks to heal us for 1,400 health, and we also restore 106 stam for 20 seconds when we are light attacking. These are doubled if we end up using a heavy attack. Now the nice thing is, if you let this, the longer you let this tick for for the 20 seconds, the more stam you're actually going to restore. You can restore up to 4,200 additional stam when the effect does end. So basically we know that we have to summon this. Typically I like to summon my shade, because when I know my shade actually has to go out, then I know Leeching Strikes is about ended, and so then I will cast that as well. Now for the ulti on the build, we are up in Assassination skill line for this one. It starts off as Death Stroke. We then morph it to Incapacitating Strikes. This is a 7-meter range with about a half-second cast time that will deal 12,500 disease damage and then cause the enemy to take 20% more damage from our attacks for the next 6 seconds. So we are going to stack damage on top of this person for a short duration. Now, if you let this go past 73 ultimate and go up to 120, we'll end up stunning an enemy for 3 seconds. So this is really nice because it's somewhat of a soft C or soft crowd control ability that we have there. On top of it, later in passive, we'll find out why stuns are actually really nice for our build. Now, the nice thing here too is while we have this slotted, we gain Rev, I should say, which restores 100 magic and stam when we deal damage with light or heavy attacks on an enemy with a negative effect active on them. So like I said, we had Poison Injection that will have poison. You have Dark Shade that will apply minor main. We have Relentless Focus. If you end up hitting someone with disease damage, they could get the disease status effect, and that will end up being another negative effect on them. On top of Incapacitating Strike will also deal disease damage, so that will also be another negative effect for them for a short duration. Now over into our back bar. Starting with the first skill, is still in the Assassination skill line. It is the first ability to unlock, starts off as Assassin's Blade. We then morph it to Killer's Blade. This we will end up stabbing an enemy, dealing 4,200 disease damage, and we will deal 300% more damage to enemies below 25%. So this is another execute ability since it's based on more damage below a certain health point. As you can see, my Killer's Blade and Poison Injection are both on the same skill, so that way I know my executes are on the same button at all times. Now the nice thing about Killer's Blade here too is we will heal for 5,000 health if the enemy dies within 2 seconds of being struck by this, and this is based off our max health, so the more health we have, the stronger this would be. But for me, I feel like 2,000 or 23,000 health is good enough for this build. If you want more, we'll talk about how you can get more too. Next ability we have is down into the Shadow skill line. It is the first ability to unlock, starts off as Veiled Strike. We then morph it to Surprise Attack. This will slash an enemy, dealing 8,000 physical damage and applying the Sutter status effect. So now this is another negative that can be placed on the enemy for a short period of time. The nice thing about that is when attacking a surprise with the surprise attack from the enemy's flank, we can stun the enemy for 3 seconds and set them off balance. So Nate, what is flanking in the game? Flanking is this. When you're looking at our target dummy here or enemy right here, if we start at the enemy shoulder here and work our way all the way around to the back side of the shoulder here, this is considered flanking in the game. So as long as we stay on this side of the enemy, we'll end up getting that stun when we end up using surprise attack, with getting the off balance as well. But we cannot stun him because the target is immune to stun effect. So next ability we have is all the way down into, I believe, the Assault skill line. Yes, it is the Assault skill line. It is the first ability to unlock, starts off as Vigor. We then morph it to Resolving Vigor. This will let loose a battle cry that will heal us for 16,900 health over 4 seconds. So this is our, oh snap, we're gonna die type of heal that we need to cast on ourselves in order to make sure that we don't die, because if you are dead, you have no DPS, and you are crucial for DPS, so in order to burn bosses, so you need to stay alive. Make sure you do that. If you need to do different type of heals on the build, go for it, because like I said, you got to stay alive, otherwise you're not helping the group if you're dead as a DPS. Next ability that we have is all the way back up into the Siphoning skill line. It is the 5th ability to unlock, starts off as Drain Power. We then morph it to Power Extraction. This one also lasts for 20 seconds that will deal 6,400 disease damage to all nearby enemies, so an area of effect of 8 meters. Now, the nice thing about this ability is we apply minor cowardice to them for 10 seconds, reducing their weapon and spell damage by 215. So we're negating some damage from us on the tank and other people as well, since we are applying a kind of a special debuff to them. Apply also with our minor main, so those are two different type of negative effects. So look at this, we got now more negative effects on this bar as well. On top of it, this will actually give us major brutality and sorcery, which increases our weapon and spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. So this is why my weapon damage is decently high with the build, is because of getting major brutality. Now, next ability we have is down in the dual wield skill line. First ability to unlock starts off as Flurry. We then morph it to Rapid Strikes. Yes, this has a 0.6 channel time, all the way up to 7 meter range, and it's only on one target. This will be our main spammable. This is what we'll use the most time to spam our attacks in DPS with. Yes, we also have surprise attack that can be a spammable if you so desire, but I just like to use this to get the stutter status effect on them because that's reducing armor. But anyways, Rapid Strikes, each consecutive with 5 consecutive attacks, each dealing 1,200 physical damage, and each hit increases the damage of the subsequent hit by 3%. So if you keep hitting those hits, so your first hit will be 1,200, your second hit, if you nail it, will be 3% stronger, fourth one or third one would be 3%, fourth is 3%, and the last one will be then the final one will be 300% more damage on the final hit. So if you can end up hitting a bunch of times with this, you'll end up doing a lot of damage. And then for ulti on this one, I just decided to keep the same ulti on this one, just because keeping up our recovery is very important on a DPS. If you can keep up your recovery, you're gonna keep your DPS going. That way you don't have to stop in heavy attack now and again. So this is why I end up running it. If you want to run something else, you're free to do so. You can run the dual wield ability, Lacerate, and either or morph of that one if you really want to. I mean, you got some options, but that's what I just personally like, is incapacitating strike on both sides, since of all the negative effects. Now, going over passives all the way at the top. For the passives, I will only be going over key passives in the build so that this section doesn't take too long, to go over every section, on the build, because I just want to save some time so it's not an overly long video. So in the assassination, some key passives here are Master Assassin, which gives us more penetration when we are flanking an enemy, and that's why it's very important to flank an enemy, because the more you flank, the more you're actually going to hit harder, because penetration in the game is actually you cutting through armor. Typically tanks end up reducing armor resistance. By you having penetration, you're cutting through that armor is what that means. And we can also increase the duration of stuns from sneak attack by 100%, so flanking basically, which is really, really nice. We have Executioner, which gives us 1,000 magic and stam if an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by our surprise attacks or stuff like that. Actually, it wouldn't be surprise attack, it'd be either basically with our Killer's Blade ability. Pressure Point here increases our weapon and spell critical rating for each ability slotted. So I got 2 on this bar, on our back bar, and I got 2 on our front bar. So that way my critical rating doesn't jump from bar to bar, so that way I know where it's at. Granted, yes, I know one's at 70% and the other one's at 63%, but that's just based on what traits I have on my bow. And then Hemorrhage, this definitely is a good one because this increases our critical damage by 10%, and whenever we do critical damage, we give the group Minor Savagery, which increases our weapon critical rating by 1,300 for 20 seconds. So yeah, that's why also my critical rating's up fairly high, because if I can deal critical damage, I'm just making it a lot easier for me to hit crit with crit percentage. In the shadow skill line, key passives here is refreshing shadows, just to increase our health, stam, and magic recovery by 15%. Very nice to keep up our resources for a DPS purposes. Keep it up, you're gonna be able to not have to heavy attack, and heavy attacks kind of slow down your DPS damage per second if you didn't know that. Dark Vigor here increases our max health by 3% per shadow ability slotted. And as you can see, we have at least one shadow ability on each bar, so that way our health doesn't dip from bar to bar. On the siphoning skill line, we have Catalyst, which whenever we drink a potion, we gain 20 ultimate, which is really nice. So basically a 45-second cooldown for 20 ultimate is what this is. We got Magicka Flood, which increases our max Magicka by 8% with a siphon ability slide. We have one on our back bar, and then we have one on our front bar, so it doesn't drop either for max Magicka. And then we got Transfer, which casting a siphon ability while in combat generates 2 ultimate, and this can occur once every 4 seconds, so that's the nice thing about casting Leeching Strikes and then Power Extraction as you go. If you wait 2 seconds or 4 seconds, then you'll get 2 ultimate from it, which I typically do. So now over into weapons for the dual wield. Some key ones here is Slaughter, which increases the damage of dual wield abilities by 20% against enemies under 25% more health or under 25% health, so we're going to hit a lot stronger during execute phase, even then with our Killer's Blade as well. We have Ruffian, which gives us a 15% damage bonus when attacking stunned, immobilize, disorient, or silence enemies. Now with, like I said, incapacitating strikes, if we wait for 120 ultimate, we're going to have a stun there. Surprise attack, if you're flanking an enemy, you will stun the enemy for 3 seconds. So that's why it's really nice to actually have Ruffian here, because if you can stun them, you're going to stun them off balance. If your tank ends up immobilizing them for a bit, you're going to set them off balance. If, let's say you use negate magic on a sorcerer, if you have a sorcerer in you, and they silence enemies, you're going to deal more damage. So this is why it's really nice with dual wield, and that's why this ends up being our main damage bar. And that's why we want to use Rapid Strikes. Twin Blade and Blunt. On this we have Dagger, so this is increasing our critical rating by 218 per dagger we have, so that's why our critical chance is up where it's at. Now for the bow bar, we have Accuracy as a passive. This is just increasing our critical chance rating. Like I said, yes, I know it's at 70k, or 70% I should say, not 70k, 70%, so this is what's keeping it up there, and this is a really nice passive, so that way you don't have too big of a dip between critical chance on both bars, even though, yes, I know one's at 70, one's at 63. Hawkeye here, this increases our damage of our bow abilities by 5% for 5 seconds. That can stack up to 5 times. So if you are able to swap from bar to bar quick enough and go through your rotations enough, you can get a nice stack. However, to me, I seem like I really can't get a stack that will stay on at all times, so it is what it is. And then Hasty Retreat is really nice, that when you use a roll dodge with your bow, you'll actually end up moving away faster, which is always kind of nice to get out of the way, or for traveling around and stuff like that. Now, going over the armor, basically I'm just going to briefly talk about each of these, because there's a lot of passives in here and it's going to take a little bit. So in light armor, for those that don't know, light armor will give us magic recovery. Yeah, they also reduce the cost to magic abilities, spell critical, you get spell penetration along with other bonuses in this, and also penalties as well on near the top per type of light armor worn. Now for the medium armor, this is where most of our damage stuff is actually going to be. So in here also, we're also getting stam recovery, reduce the cost of stam abilities, weapon critical, weapon damage, and other bonuses as well. And then for the heavy armor, in here, this will give us more resistance, health recovery. We also get resources restored when taking damage, max health, along with other bonuses and penalties. bonuses and penalties per type of armor worn. So just keep in mind on those. Another good passive here is Soul Magic. Get this up. If you get 2 out of 2, you will revive once an hour without spending a soul gem, which is really, really nice to save on soul gems in the game. Fighter Guild here, we have Slayers to increase our weapon damage if we have a Fighter's Guild ability slotted. Banish the Wicked, we generate 3 ultimate whenever we kill an enemy, which is really nice here at DPS, so most likely you will end up killing somebody. Mage's Guild, Persuasive Will, just for questing purposes. Undaunted, here are some really good ones. You have Undaunted Command. Activating a synergy restores 4% of your max health, stam, and magicka. So we get back 974 health, 1200 stam, and 547 magicka. With Undaunted Metal, this increases our max health, stam, and magicka by 2% per type of armor worn. So 2% for at least wearing heavy, 2% for at least wearing medium, and 2% for at least wearing light. So we get 6% because we are wearing at least one of each. In the Assault, if you really wanted to, you could get Continuous Attack just to get that major gallop for your mounts, so that way you're moving 30% faster at all times, just to get around in questing and stuff like that. For race, we are on the Wood Elf. Now, if you do not want to run a Wood Elf and want some other races, probably more superior races, very good choices here would probably be Dark Elf, you have Khajiit, you have Orc, and if you want to, you can also run Redguard. Overall, though, I would say kind of play any race that you want to play. Yes, some will be better for DPS purposing if you want to min-max, but I still personally like to say play what type of race you want to play as. But for the Wood Elf here, we get Hunter's Eye, which increases our stealth detection radius by 3 meters, nice for PvP. Also, we increase our movement speed by 5% and physical and spell penetration by 950. So we just move 5% faster at all times, and we cut through people's armor a little bit easier. Year Fees Endurance, this increases our stam recovery by 258, and yes, that's why my stam recovery is basically at whopping 2,300. Resistance Affliction increases our max stam by 2,000, which is really nice for a stam DPS for max resources. And Disease and Poison Resistance by 2,300 just kind of gives me that flavor of an assassin or a rogue that built immunity to disease and poison, so that's why I kind of like this playstyle a little bit, and the race. Now, very key passive is found into the alchemy, which is medicinal use. Potions results last 30% longer. So at first, if you don't have this unlocked, your potion effects on your things only last for 36 seconds, with global cooldown on potions at 45 seconds. So that means you have 9 seconds of not being able to basically have buffs on. So get medicinal use, and you'd be at 47 seconds with 45-second cooldown, so 100% uptime. So definitely get medicinal use. Over into provisioning, we have Gourmet and Connoisseur, depending on what type of food or drink you want to run. For me right now, I believe I'm running a food, so this adds 20 minutes to the duration of the food, and Connoisseur would add 20 minutes to the drink. So if you want to save on making concoctions and keeping your buffs up a little bit longer, this helps out. Now, let's go over to the gear and stuff. Starting with our slottable items. The food I am running on this one is the Lava Foot's soup and sauté rice, which is increasing my max stam by 4,900 and stam recovery by 493 for basically 2.5 hours, basically almost 3 hours, which is really nice. Now, if you need some health, another good option would be Dubious Cameron Throne, which gives you stam recovery by 315, max stam by 2,800, and max health by 3,000. So as you can see, you lose some good amount of stam, and you lose some good amount of recovery as well between Lava Foot Stomp and Dubious Cameron Throne. Now, maybe a better food would be Artaeum Takeaway Broth, which would give you max stam, max health, stam recovery, and health recovery, which are all better than Dubious Cameron Throne. It's basically like Lava Foot Stomp or Lava Foot Soup, just gold quality, which is a little bit more expensive, but if you want cheap, nice, easy version, this is a nice, cheap, easy version. Now for potions that we are running on this build, we are running Essence of Weapon Crit, which gives us Major Savagery, which is 2600 weapon critical for the 47 seconds. This is where medicinal use comes in. We also restore health with this potion that I have concocted for 8000 health, and get health recovery, increasing our health recovery by 30%, and we also get 7500 stam back immediately, and increasing our stam recovery by 30% as well. So this is what I really like to run, just to make sure our crits are up there nice and high. If you don't want to run this and decided, let's say, slot Camouflage Hunter, then you can do that and switch things around if you so desire over in skills. Now for our bow, the bow we are running is the Maelstrom Bow, which absorbs stam enchantment for 1900 physical damage and restoring 327 stam. We have the precise to increase our weapon and spell critical by 6.2. Again, if this is way too high, you can use other traits, like you can use Sharpen for more physical and spell penetration. You could use Nirnhone for more damage, since this will basically act off of our Endless Hail. So there's options. You don't have to run precise, but this is what I just like to run. Now for Thunderous Volley, this increases the damage of volley ability, so this is basically our Endless Hail by 415 each tick. And there's a bonus that increases 138 every time volley ticks, up to a maximum of 8 times. So if you're hitting an enemy with Endless Volley for 8 ticks, you will take 138 times 8, and that's how much damage in total you'll do. And so you'll do that. If you hit them right off the bat, it lasts for 12 seconds, so you have 4 seconds of hitting basically max damage. Now, for the dual wield, we are running Gladiator's Daggers with the Crusher's enchantment, just to reduce target's physical and spell resistance by 811. Like I said earlier, if you reduce target's resistance, the lower you get it, the stronger you're going to hit. And with the penetration we have too, the stronger we're also going to hit too, so we're trying to narrow that window down on how much resistance the enemy actually has. We went with the Nirnhone trait on this for more damage, and the Kavachi Gladiator set. For 2 pieces, we get 634 weapon critical, 634 weapon critical again for the 3-piece, 124 weapon damage for 4 and 5. We gain 1400 weapon damage against targets who are at or below 25% health. So along with all of our other passives that we are running, you can see why that when it comes to that 25% health marker, we are definitely going to shine on this build. This is totally designed to be an execute build. When you get there, you're going to hit a lot harder than you were working your way up to it. It doesn't mean that you're lacking in the front. You're keeping up with the damage up front, but you're just going to hit way harder. Keynote here, that weapon damage you will not see. If, let's say, you're on a target dummy, you hit the target dummy below 25% health or at, and you look at your stats, it won't show the 1400 weapon damage. So just letting you know. On the back end, we are doing the weapon damage enchantment just to give us 174 more weapon damage for 5 seconds, with Sharpen just increasing our physical and spell penetration. For the monster helm on this build, we are running Selene's. Now, for enchantments on this build, for head, chest, and legs, we are running max health enchantments. That means, which is our bigger pieces. Now for all of our smaller pieces, which are feet, hands, waist, and shoulders, we are going to run max stam enchantment on those. Everything will be in divine traits. Now what does Selene provide to us? It gives us 1000 max health, or max stam I should say, not health. 2-piece is when we deal melee damage, which that's our main damage bar, is what we're going to do most of our damage on. A bear will come out and maul the closest enemy in front of us after 1.3 seconds and deal 12,400 physical damage, and can occur once every 6 seconds. So if you're dealing damage with melee, this is pretty much has 100% uptime. That you'll always cast it once every 6 seconds. Now, next set that we are running on the build is New Moon Acolyte. New Moon Acolyte gives us 634 critical chance, so that's both spell and physical. or spell and weapon critical, 124 weapon and spell damage, 1,400 offensive penetration, so that's why our pen's decently good, and we get 387 weapon and spell damage. Now, key note here is right there, increase the cost of your active abilities by 5%. So yes, things got a little expensive for us, a little bit more, but not overly too bad. But with the nice recovery we have, it's going to negate a lot of our stam cost on our abilities and make us able to actually keep casting for a decent duration. So shoulders is also Celine's, with waist, hands, legs, and feet New Moon Acolyte. Now for weights, head is in light, chest is in heavy, because this will give us the max amount of armor here. Shoulders is medium, waist, hands, legs, and feet are all medium. Jewelry is Kavachi Gladiator, and we are running weapon damage enchantments on all three, with infused trait on the neck just to give us more weapon damage enchantment. And the rings are Bloodthirsty just to increase our weapon and spell damage against enemies under 90% health, up to a maximum of 280. Now over into the champion point system. We are going to start in the craft, and a lot of this is just completely up to you, but if you kind of want to follow me and do, let's say, like a thief or a rogue type build, for slottables I have Infamous, which increases the value of fence item by 25%. I have Cup Purse, which increases the chance of getting higher quality loot when pickpocketing as a slottable, and then I have Treasure Hunter just to increase the quality of items found in treasure chest. But other things I have is, you know, this has to be active, this one also has to be active, so I have Guildfinger for more gold, also Fortune Favor for gold and treasure chests, Wanderer for Waste Shrine cost, it was just to get to Steadfast Enchantments for weapon enchantment decay, but it was mostly we wanted to get Rationer for our last slottable to add 10 minutes to the duration of any eat, or 30 minutes to the duration, so that's why our food bus basically lasts for 3 hours, or pretty close to it. Now into fitness, our damage tree in the blue tree here. Precision will give us a total of 640 critical chance, 40 out of 40. Our one slottable here is Fighting Finesse to 10% critical damage and critical healing done, so definitely the damage there. And our extended tree here, we have 40 points into piercing for 1,400 offensive penetration, 40 points into battle mastery for a 60% increased chance to apply the martial stats effects, Mighty for 100 weapon and spell damage to martial attacks affecting our physical, poison, disease, and bleed damage. Now our last slottables to finish out the build, we have Deadly Aim for 10% more damage to single targets. We have Dharma Charge for 10% more damage done to damage over time effects. And Biting Aura for 10% more damage done for area of effect attacks. Now over into the red tree here, we have 50 points into Rejuvenation as a slottable, just to increase our recovery, and that's why recovery is decently high on the build. We have 50 points into Boundless Vitality, so this is giving us 1,400 max health. That's why health is sitting at a value that I feel very comfortable with to running content with. We got 30 points into Defiance for reducing the cost of break free, because we have to do that sometimes now again. Tumbling just to reduce the roll dodge, just to get out of the way by 240. Another slottable we have is Expert Evasion, just to have a free roll dodge cost ability that we get every 30 seconds. Then we have 32 points into Hasty for 8% movement speed. We have Hero's Vigor for 40 points to give us another additional 1,120 max health, so that's where a lot of our health is coming into play. A very nice, very good slottable to have for the build is you restore 300 stam per stage whenever you kill an enemy for 1,500 stam. Yes, we could go up here and get siphoning spells if we want to, because we do have one magic ability, but I figured it wasn't really well worth it compared to the stam, because we're definitely going to be using stam more often. And then we just have 10 here for Tyler's Guardian, just to kind of open up the tree this way to not spend as much points. And we really wanted Hasty, because Hasty's kind of nice if you're playing like a thief or assassin or a rogue types play style. So there you have it for the Nightblade PVE DPS build for Flames of Ambition. thank you all so much for watching. If you like the content or build, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free for you to do. If you want to keep up to date with any other my content that I may drop, please hit that notification bell to stay up to date with it. If you want to, you can follow me over on Twitch. I do stream there regularly. If you have any questions about this build or any other my other stuff I do on ESO, don't be afraid to leave a comment down below and ask questions about this build or anything else. If you want to, you could also message me over at Twitter. Thank you to all the recent subscribers. We have Queen City Gaming, we have Michael Johnston, we had Minster MMOs, we had Stu Jensen's DK, so I know I have that probably scrolling on the screen, but yeah, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.